Hi, this video will prove that China planned COVID-19. I will first start off with facts, then I will use facts, evidence, and logic to connect the dots. 2002, SARS appeared in China and spread worldwide within a few months. It was quickly contained. November 8th, 2012, a new coronavirus called MERS emerged in the Middle East, causing an illness similar to SARS. 7 days later, Xi Jinping was proclaimed paramount leader, the highest-ranking official in China. After 2012, the entire world had seen two coronaviruses, MERS and SARS. At this point, the entire world realized that there are other coronavirus strains out there. Scientists at this point knew that different coronavirus strains were created from bats to a second animal to humans. For SARS, it was bats to civet cats and raccoon dogs to humans. For MERS, it was bats to camels to humans. And scientists knew that many other coronavirus strains would be a bat to some other second animal to humans. Since 2006, even till now, China is found to have been murdering prisoners for organs. 2017, China worked tirelessly behind the scenes and lobbying to ensure the election of Tedros, who previously served in the government of the Marxist and violently repressive Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Democratic Front. Tedros is now the Director General of the World Health Organization. September 2017. It is now possible to have multiple vaccines in a single injection. 2018. 1 million Uighur Muslims were sent to concentration camps in China. China wanted to say these were re-education camps, but we know the truth. The men were sterilized, women raped, forced to sleep with those in charge, their organs were harvested. It was genocide. February 2019. Westerners began to meme Chinese leader Xi Jinping to Winnie the Pooh. Xi Jinping bans images comparing himself to Winnie the Pooh. June 2019. China vaccine law passed. This makes vaccine mandatory within China. The official Xinhua news agency states that the law provides for the strictest vaccine management, with tough penalties in order to ensure the country's vaccine safety. July 2019. Citizens in Wuhan rioted. Authorities deployed large numbers of riot police in Wuhan and warned of harsh measures if the demonstrations, which had brought thousands of people into the city's streets, continue. October 2019. China strongly urges U.S. to remove sanctions and stop accusing it of human rights violations. Also in October 2019, China doubled their flu vaccine supplies. March 27, 2020. Dr. Robert Gary, a professor at the Tulane University School of Medicine, performed a study. When asked if the virus originated in late 2019 in Wuhan, he said, "Our analysis, and others too, point to an earlier origin than that. There were definitely cases there, but that wasn't the origin of the virus." The new study on the origins of the virus has also concluded that COVID-19 developed naturally, as opposed to being engineered, which would leave fingerprints. April 2nd, 2020. To the frustration of both the White House and the intelligence community, the agencies have been unable to glean more accurate numbers through their collection efforts. So those are all the facts. Now I'm going to connect all the dots. This is China's C-Day theory. In 2012 or 2013, China set up a lab to attempt to force a new strain of the coronavirus. They simply needed to provide the right environment for a new coronavirus strain to transfer to humans naturally. By doing it this way, the virus does not look engineered. They would have bats and a bunch of other types of animals in the lab. Once they successfully get a new strain, they could test it on the Uighur Muslims or prisoners. After years of this, they eventually discover COVID-19. This goes along with the studies that say COVID-19 developed naturally, as well as the analysis that the origin of the virus is earlier than China says. Let's assume that this takes 2 years and is now 2015. Now that they have COVID-19 in test tubes, they can begin research on a cure. The cure takes 12 to 18 months. Let's assume it is now 2017. They begin to mass produce the cure in mass quantities, and then they give the vaccine to most of China's citizens outside of Wuhan. They do not need to give it to every citizen outside of Wuhan because herd immunity will protect them. They want some citizens to get infected outside of Wuhan to throw off suspicion. They of course use the vaccine on their leaders. They do not use the vaccine on citizens of Wuhan because they need to show the world that China also got hit by the virus, but that they contained it. So they plan to do a shutdown of Wuhan and the surrounding province, showing the world that that is how they contained the virus. They will still get some infections here or there outside of Wuhan, and this is expected since they did not vaccinate all of their citizens outside of Wuhan, but herd immunity will protect it from spreading too much within their borders. Why choose Wuhan? Because Wuhan protested in July 2019. China is out for revenge and killing two birds with one stone. China releases the virus in Wuhan, and they choose the food market to reduce suspicion. This will lead everyone to believe that it came from the food market. China ensures the virus gets to the US and Europe. They keep it spreading for as long as they can. January 23rd, they lock down Wuhan. This, of course, is just a facade to trick the US and Europe. Was Wuhan truly locked down? Yes, but it didn't need to be. Most of their other citizens were already vaccinated. China buys up face masks and other supplies before other countries need them. They hoard them and gouge prices to make a profit. They give and sell Western countries faulty tests and masks. This leads the virus to spread further. This was all intentional. WHO's leader Tedros downplays the virus and gives intentionally bad advice to spread the virus further. He waits until it is too late for America to do anything before calling it a pandemic. He is in the CCP's pockets. Outside of Wuhan, the spread has effectively stopped, according to China's official figures. All but one of the 99 new cases reported on Saturday, March 7th, were in Wuhan, or were people who had traveled to China from abroad. A brave Chinese man from Shanghai sent out information complaining that CCP is the true virus. And then he goes on to say how in Shanghai it seems pretty peaceful and normal, that he doesn't see anyone infected. The reason he doesn't see many infected in Shanghai was because so many of them were possibly vaccinated, thus giving the city herd immunity. Evidence suggests the virus should be rampant all over China. Here's a cellular network map of January within China. You can see how much traffic went to the other cities from Wuhan. Based on the data, 7 million people left Wuhan in January before Wuhan was locked down. The vast majority of the 7 million traveled within China. All cities in China should be like cities in the USA. But they aren't because they gave the vaccine to many of their citizens outside of Wuhan. These cities were protected through herd immunity. China and Russia both create disinformation. China claims that the virus came from the US Army. Russia claims that the coronavirus is a US bioweapon. Their plan is to confuse their enemy, US and Europe, by creating a disinformation campaign. It's like smoke and mirror to conceal the truth. They feed you one lie to lead you to believe another lie. They tell you it came from the US Army to lead you to believe it came from a food market. You must look past all the lies. China lied about numbers to add more smoke and make it even harder to see the truth. While it is true that they are hiding numbers, especially in Wuhan, many think they are lying about numbers to save their reputation. That is the conclusion they want you to think. In truth, they must lie about their numbers to prevent the discovery that their other cities had herd immunity from the beginning. If we saw their real numbers, statistics would lead to the conclusion that they had herd immunity on most of their population outside of Wuhan. US and Europe take huge hits to their economies. China buys up cheap stocks to now own large parts of Western companies. They've successfully shifted the scale of power. Another branch of this theory is that they didn't do this by themselves, but are working with Russia and North Korea. Both countries also did the vaccine to most of their population, to create a herd immunity before deploying the virus. So they must also lie about their numbers, which is what they've been doing, because if their true numbers were revealed, statistics would lead to the conclusion that they had herd immunity. Another possible branch of my theory is that China will be the first to release the vaccine. They could either sell it to the rest of the world or give it for free as a sign of power. And China even has a backup plan. They have thought of a way to prevent this theory from ever being 100% proven. First, they close off their borders to ensure their Chinese people can't get out and be tested by Western nations. Before they ever open their borders again, they will certainly discover the vaccine and say they are deploying it to their people. This way, the ability for Western nations to test people coming from China to determine if a disproportionate number of them had antibodies would become impossible. And here's the part of my theory that I know sounds crazy, but a regime similar to Nazis cannot be underestimated on what they'd be willing to do for power. This part, I believe, could be their endgame. There are as many as 5,000 strains of coronaviruses in bats. China has likely discovered many other strains of coronaviruses to be transmissible from bat to a second animal to human. They have tested and researched a ton of them. Some will only be like a common cold. However, many will be a pneumonia-like illness, similar to Covid-19. And they will all have varying degrees of incubation times, infection rates, and death rates. Covid-19 was probably chosen out of many to be the first strain to be released. They would want a super high infection rate, a moderately high death rate, and a pretty long incubation period. Covid-19 checks all those boxes. They wouldn't want it to have too high of a death rate because that would look more suspicious. And remember, they want it to look like an accident to not start a conventional war. They would never win in a conventional war. So they resort to unconventional warfare like collapsing the enemy's economy and ensuring that the enemy's deaths each year outnumber their births. They can artificially give their people an evolutionary advantage to ensure inferior races without immunity die out. They're playing the long game here. Every few years, they will release a new strain of the coronavirus, and each time it will devastate Western economies. US and Europe will eventually collapse if we don't take action now. This is not a normal virus. This is not just a flu. China has combined biological and economic warfare onto Western civilization. CCP must fall. This cover-up must stop. Share and spread the truth. Here are pages of sources to every fact, evidence that I have found. These links are also in the description of this video.